On September 11, 2025, Bethan Harrison activist asked Yara Shahidi activist in a Forbes interview on how she felt about her world right now. Yara answered honestly by saying she is terrified and would like a plan to fix it. I empathize in that no one should live in fear. In my opinion, this sounds like a plea for help. I want to help, but how? When Yara Shahidi was younger, she did an equality speech on October 19, 2018 at the Gleason Respect Awards. I argue the speech is a hypothesis to fix her world and to reduce her fear. In April 2024, I published my book on Amazon based on this hypothesis, showing that prevention will lead to equity and that equity will lead to equality. This hypothesis will fix the political, economic, and social problems in her world and our world. This nonprofit, non-edited channel is a letter to Yara Shahidi and teaching Yara's hypothesis to the public in order to better our world. In the end, Yara Shahidi will get the Nobel Peace Prize for her hypothesis. Dear Yara Shahidi, this is chapter 29, guns. Why do people own guns? Research shows that 30% of Americans own guns for protection, hunting, sports shooting, gun collecting, and their job. Research also shares that 44% of Americans personally know someone who has been shot either accidentally or intentionally. Plus, nearly 44,000 Americans died of gun-related injuries in 2017. Where are we politically on gun control? The research shows that 92% of Republicans and Republican independents and 91% of Democrats and Democratic independents say they favor preventing people with mental illnesses from buying guns. Plus, 93% of Democrats and 82% of Republicans favor background checks for private gun sales and sales at gun shows. The last thing is that 80% of Democrats and 50% of Republicans favor banning assault-style weapons. The gun debate in America is often framed as a standoff between Democrats and Republicans with little potential to move ahead with meaningful legislative reform. Concerns about victimization and mass shootings within a shared culture of fear in the U.S. can drive cognitive bias and motivated reasonings on both sides of the gun debate. Despite common fears, differences in attitudes and feelings about guns themselves, opposition to gun control legislation is often exaggerated within depictions of fear of the gun from, say, another mass shooting. These feelings are perfectly valid and should be taken into consideration. A psychological perspective suggests that consensus on gun legislation reform can be achieved through understanding differences and diversity on both sides of the debate. Good gun legislature can be achieved by working within a common ground by applying more research on how best to minimize fear while maximizing personal and public safety. What is the research and legislation that will best minimize fear of the gun while maximizing personal and public safety? The answer to this question is Germany. Germany's relationship with firearms is similar to the United States. Germany has one of the highest weapons per head rates in the world. In 2014, 5.5 million legal weapons were registered as being in the hands of 1.45 million people, private individuals. The country's police union estimates that the number of illegal weapons in the country to be considerably higher, around 20 million. According to gunpolicy.org, this puts Germany at 15th place out of 175 nations in terms of guns per capita. What does this all mean? While there are a lot of guns in the country, While there are a lot of guns in the country, they don't seem to kill a lot of people. Germany's gun homicide rate is one of the lowest in Europe. A death rate of 0.5 per 1,000 people compared with 3.34 in the U.S. In fact, incidents of gun crime, including both weapons being fired and used to threaten people, have declined by almost a quarter since 2010. Why do Germans kill each other less than the U.S. when they have approximately the same number of weapons? Why do Germans kill each other less than the U.S. when they have approximately the same number of guns? Experts put this trend down to a number of tweaks to the gun law in the wake of high-profile shootings, such as 2 mass shootings at schools by teenagers who killed 31 people. The Germans' new law on gun control is that if a person applies for their first firearms license, then they must undergo psychiatric evaluation with a trained counselor involving personality and anger management tests. Also, experienced hunters or sports shooters may be called in for psychiatric tests if they display certain kinds of behavior, such as being caught drunk driving. Plus, inherited guns have to be fitted with state-of-the-art blocking mechanisms, making them unusable. The last law is a national register on gun ownership, but the records are kept at the local level or local government. This in turn made it harder for individuals to own multiple weapons. I argue that German gun control is good, but I would like America to categorize gun licenses like a driver's license. For example, there would be Class A license for shotguns, Class B license for handguns, Class C license for concealed carry, Class D license for the collector of guns, and lastly a Class E license used for semi-automatic weapons to be used and stored at gun clubs or fire ranges only. Instead of carrying multiple licenses, there should be a barcode on the gun owner's license in order to show what type of license or licenses they have on the barcode. It is more convenient to the owner. Why do these laws work for the U.S. in the short term? These rules stated so far is the middle ground for gun control. For example, people who want to own a gun can, without the continuous debate and fear on whether or not the government will take their guns away. Now, the gun owners can choose, as the research shows, to possess a gun with protection, hunting, sports shooting, gun collecting, or for their job. Research shows people want to restrict guns, so it will make it harder for mass shooters to get a gun. For the 70% of Americans who do not own a gun, they can sleep comfortably because Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health published a study that showed that firearm purchaser licensing laws that require an in-person application and fingerprinting are associated with an estimated 56% fewer mass shootings in states that they have them. Let me say that again. That was really hard. For the 70% of Americans who do not own a gun, they can sleep comfortably because Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health published a study that showed that firearm purchaser licensing laws that require an in-person application and fingerprinting are associated with an estimated 56% fewer mass shootings in states that have them. In my world, all the gun owners that I know like to take control of a bad situation and want to protect their family and home with their own gun. This is why they own guns. They do not want to rely on anybody but themselves mostly, and a gun helps them do that. If a person, government, or any entity that gets in the way from a gun owner achieving this goal, then they feel vulnerable and helpless and that they can't do anything to protect their home or family. This is when anxiety and fear ramp up for the gun owners. This is why gun owners complain about the government stepping over the line and taking away their freedoms. I don't blame them. If a person was dependent on a tool like a gun to protect their family and property from any bad situation, then I would complain and distrust the government too. In their situation, the people and the government are not understanding the gun owner. In their situation, the people and the government are not understanding the gun owner and what the gun does for them. For the gun owners that I know, it is intolerable for someone they don't trust, like someone in government, to make rules that takes away their tool to protect their own. For the gun owners that I know, it is intolerable for someone they don't trust, like someone in government, to make rules that takes away their tool to protect their most fundamental things in the world, their family and property. Also in my world, I know non-gun owners who do rely on the system of government to intervene in a dangerous situation, like the police, because they feel they do not have the expertise or the training, like the cops, to deter a dangerous situation. Also, others that I know do not want to confront a dangerous situation because it is too scary to them to even think about. In their minds, this is why they pay taxes and have faith in the system to help them if they encounter a dangerous situation. This is why they do not need to own a gun. Now, if the system is broken, then they gather with others like themselves in demonstrations to help fix the system or government to where it needs fixing. When government can't be fixed, say mass shootings, then they get mad at the other side for compromising their safety and the safety of their family and the other side's right to own guns. If both sides actually look at the bigger picture, then they can see that they are trying to accomplish the same thing, like protection of oneself, family, and property from a bad situation. In order to solve this problem, I will reiterate what was mentioned before. The first thing is individual education, preventive psychology, how to find purpose, how to make friends, how to be happy, etc., as stated before, is how to solve the mass shooter problem. The second thing is that a gun owner has to obtain a gun license to any firearm that want to. The second thing is that a gun owner has to obtain a gun license to any firearm they want to possess in the 5 categories given Class A to Class E licenses. This means that gun owners must attend classes and pass written and practical This means that gun owners must attend classes and pass written and practical exercises in person in order to pass the classes. In these classes, just like for a driver's license, a person has to demonstrate a proficiency with their weapon, establish that they're not going to endanger the public, how to lock and store their weapon safely, and that they understand all the laws governing them in the use of that firearm. This will help against mass shooters, as the research suggests as well. The third part is that gun owners must undergo a psychological assessment to determine if they are mentally fit to own a firearm by an accredited professional like in Germany. This will end the debate for both Republicans and Democrats in preventing people with mental illnesses from buying guns. This will also deter mass shooters as well. The best part about this is that preventive psychology will have records from students from 2 years old to graduation, from students who understand their own psychology. The fourth part is that gun owners have to get a police background check to register the gun with the national database, but keep the names at the local government, like in Germany. This also goes for private gun sales and sales at gun shows that both Republicans and Democrats favor in the research provided so far. The last part needed to help gun control is to put gun safety classes as elective or mandatory class in schools to be used in the student's IEP for high school students for Lamana Plus citizens. The classes will show each student that a gun is a tool for protection and it is not a weapon. The students will know that the gun should only be used as a last resort to defend themselves or oneself from a bad situation or if they are threatened in some manner. Once a student handles and shoots a gun in a controlled and safe environment, then these tools or items can be fun in shooting competitions like in the Olympics. Other projectile shooting weapons should be taught as well, like crossbows, bows, and arrows, etc. Actually, a history class on ancient weapons to modern day weapons could be introduced in schools in understanding how humans waged war and defended themselves from bad situations over the thousands of years humans have been on the planet. Once the immersion takes place in the classroom from using guns, then students will finally know what and what not to do in gun safety classes. They will respect the gun because the students will be trained in it. An example of this is in high school. In high school, they have shooting competitions for skeet and trap shooting. They don't bring the firearms to school. They have their guns at firing ranges, and gun safety is a priority. This was all in PBS. It's so cool. The high school league operates in 35 states with 250,000 students participating. A student cannot compete unless they have completed the gun safety certification program. Not a single student has been hurt in the league. Just like other athletic competitions, it brings mental and physical toughness, healthy competition, meditation, and self-confidence. It is one of the fastest growing sports in the country. This shows that when guns are used properly and safety is the most important lesson learned, the guns can be fun. In these approaches, there will be some people who agree with it and others who will not. I personally would love to end the debate of guns and get rid of the fear they have had on the community as a whole for generations. The only way to get rid of a person's fear is to face it and own it so that it never bothers that person again. Putting gun safety in school under the supervision of professional teachers achieves this goal by getting rid of the fear that the gun has on society. In the end, I hope the fear ends so people can tolerate each other again on both sides of the political divide or political spectrum. It's so easy. It's all right there on PBS. Ich Nissan Shigo, Kuju, Lalun Wiwi, Hola Buenos Dias. We all win together. De nada.